In a video the other day, I talked about the superstar talent in comic books right now and how through the generations you would have these young up and coming artists pop onto the scene, and next thing you know, they're on every book, they're doing every variant cover, they're at the conventions, they're signing things, they're on Batman, they're on Superman, they're on the Avengers, whatever it may be. And I was talking about how you don't really have that. And of the ones that you could have had, they all left to do their own thing with independent comic books. They whether it be Jeff Johns and his crew that left with the Ghost Machine, or Scott Snyder and his crew that left. Now, granted, Greg Capullo is working on Wolverine right now, which I'm pretty excited for that. I've seen some of the artwork for it. I've seen the preview pages, and it looks good. I think there are some things about the way the pages are done that I would say, you could change this, you could change this, but beggars can't be choosers. You have Greg Capullo, a hardened comic book veteran, drawing a gritty book. He has dinosaurs, he has Wolverine on the backs of the dinosaurs. He's previewed some pencils on the pages. Captain America's going to be involved, Nick Fury's going to be involved. And reading all those old I'm getting pretty excited for it. I'm looking forward to see what he's going to do with it. I'm just a very. I could find a problem with the Picasso painting. Just for full transparency here, I don't want to sound like just your average internet cynic. But what I'm getting at is when I'm thinking about these artists and I'm thinking about these people, and I do think about these things whenever off camera when I'm talking to people, and I talk people's ear off about it, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. So you guys get to enable me. You guys get to give me a little bit of parody here. And one of the people that comes to mind, and it's always been in the back of my head knocking just a little bit, is a guy by the name of Dan Mora. Now, Dan Mora is, as I just recently found out, is 37 years old. That's not young, that's not old. You're in that weird in-between phase. But what has been keeping him in the back of my mind is it seems like no matter where I look at DC and Marvel, DC, not Marvel, he's everywhere. Have you guys noticed that? I mean, every event, DC's doing an event right now. Absolute power. The heroes lose all their superpowers and they're going to have to fight back anyway. And it's going to be the event of the summer for DC Comics. And I think that's really funny because Batman is at the center of it all. And well, he never had power, so I think he's going to be okay. But he's headlining that book. He's the artist on that book and all the subsequent variant covers. Oh, and by the way, I heard a statistic from Comics Perch. He's done 70 variant covers in just a year alone, just the variant covers, not to mention he's been the guy on Batman, Superman, World's Finest for 30 plus issues already. Now, 30 plus issues today, the year 2024, that you can't get a guy to do a running series. You could get somebody to do maybe 12 issues of a miniseries. Tom King, by example, he writes all these maxi series with 12 plus issues. I believe the only artist that stuck it through all the way in one of those is Bill Equus, the French artist that has a very Art Nouveau style, very beautiful style, I should say. Whereas you have Strange Adventures, it was cut between Doc Shaner and Mitch Gerrits, and between the two of them, 12 pages apiece. They couldn't meet their deadlines on a monthly basis. And I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but just by example, you don't have people doing this much page output anymore. You don't have that these days. So to have a guy in Dan Mora do 30 plus pages of a running series, maybe he didn't do every issue, but 30 plus credits on one series, you don't see that. Jim Lee has never done that, I don't believe, outside of maybe his X-Men run back in the 90s. But the point that I'm trying to get at is if you want to talk about who is in the running for superstar artists these days, it's Dan Mora. So what makes it? Let's get down to the interesting parts here. Why is Dan Mora the guy right now in comic books? He's done Dark Knights of Steel. He got his start, I believe, on Power Rangers back in 2018 with Boom Studios. I didn't know that. So it's not like he came out of nowhere. 2018, what is that, 6 years ago now? That's 6 years ago. He's been in this for 6 years, and he has more credits than most of other artists combined in that same time period. Oh, and by the way, you're not seeing his books get delayed left and right. So let's break it down. Let's give this guy the credit that he deserves, because unfortunately the comic book companies, as much as they may be hiring him, I don't think they're giving him that credit. You don't really hear his name. You see the artwork, you see it on the variant covers, but what's he doing? What's he doing that other people aren't? And I'm going to steal some talking points from Perch here. One of those talking points is you don't see him on Twitter. You don't see him getting into these internet slap fights. You don't see him getting into drama or politics or any number of things that an individual could get up to on Twitter. And I think that's very telling. Because when you look at those people with thousands and thousands and thousands of tweets and then likes and then shares and retweets and whatever it may be, that's time. And of that time you're spending, not all of the time is going into the tweets that you're reposting. So say they repost 100 tweets in a day, they've seen a couple thousand. And of those couple thousand, you see how it kind of trickles down and you end up spending all that time. Anybody who's watching this video should know how much time doom scrolling can take up. And of all that time, you're not drawing. And what is the way to be successful in an industry based on serialization? It's drawing. I don't have a speech impediment. It's drawing. And that's all he's doing. Not only is he drawing, he's coloring his own work. I looked at his work. He is the colorist on his work. Now, let's talk about styles. You look at his style, well, he's not Jim Lee. He's not Clay Mann. He's not Mitch Gerads, although Mitch Gerads traces most of his stuff. If you look at the characters that Mitch Gerads draws for Tom King, you actually start to see Tom King in the faces of the character. Strange Adventures, for example. I swear, when Adam Strange is at the book signing and he's doing that, "Hello, my name is Adam Strange," I can see Tom King. If you take the hair away from Adam Strange, that's Tom King, and I'm going to go out on a hill saying that. But you have this guy in Dan Mora that's doing all these pages, that's getting all these deadlines. And one of the points that I brought up that I'm going to follow up with is deadlines are very important. People care about deadlines. People care about, even if they don't outwardly say it, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the raw information, it does seem to be something that people find important in themselves. Would you believe it? People value their time and their money. Their money, that comes from time that they put to make that money. That's why I'm always hassling people about deadlines. That's why I always often bring up that talking point, because it's very important to people, to the paying public, to the customer, to the reader, whoever it may be, that when I give you my money, that's time that I want back. And if you can't give that to me, well, then you're only going to get so far. You might be successful, but you will only get so far in that success if you can't guarantee my time in return by me giving you the money and you giving me the product in a timely fashion. Dan Mora, Dark Knights of Steel, like I was saying, world's finest. He's on all these headliner titles with this nice style. And what I was talking about in a previous video about style, about how you can have a good artist that can't draw Batman, Dan Mora gets it. He draws Batman heroically. He understands the shape of the capes. And one of the things that contributes to Dan Mora's success, drawing all these pages, is one, you can tell he uses some 3D assets. Every digital artist these days can't get away without using 3D assets, but he does them the right way. Everything that one may critique another digital artist for doing, Dan Mora does properly. And he does it for the sake of the craft. He does it for the sake of getting these books out on time and doing them well. Because one of the things that Purge kept on bringing up in his video is consistency. And just like timeliness, just like meeting deadlines, just like getting the books out on time, people like consistency. When your art, it may not be here, but it's here. And it's always there. It doesn't go down, it doesn't go up. Because you can have an artist and their art is just the greatest art you've ever seen, or it sucks. And that's the only in between. Those guys might not get very far. But you have a guy who's just got good artwork all the time. Yeah, you want that guy. So when you look into the shorthand, what's the shorthand? What are the tricks that he pulls out of the bag? Well, for one, the photo reference, the digital reference, the 3D modeling that he can really quickly throw together some building, some architecture, because that is a time-consuming process, considering he's coloring his own work. What else is it? Well, it's the shape of the capes and the panel. He understands composition, and one of the things that many artists are lacking in this era is their understanding of how to use a composition to tell a story. How to get the most out of the least in a composition. If I can tell you with a handful of pieces of information where I am, when the time period is, what the setting is, and if I know where to pick my battles, where I can draw a portrait of Batman talking with no background and have the center panel be a major background, that saves time. All those things that go into the artist's shorthand save time. And Dan Mora, between his output and now his experience, He's lapped some of these other comic book guys who have been here for 10, 20 years in experience just by putting out these books, just by effectively saying yes to the book offer, getting the pages out on time, and keeping himself to that standard. I think another part of his success also goes into the fact that he works a lot with Mark Waid. Mark Waid, I believe, is doing Absolute Power, the event this year. He also does The World's Finest. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that beats hard work. And I'm going to say that until the end of time. There is absolutely nothing that beats hard work. And you know what? Dan Mora, that's a hardworking guy. And if I had the money, I would be getting his books left and right.